my wife looked across the table at me and she said, "You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to help preserve these stories, because when the people are gone, or when the business, when the people are, the founder, the president, the key people, when they're gone, you don't have the ability to tell these stories."
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Small Business Success Talk. I am your host, Christy Smallwood, and as usual, I am super excited to be here, and I'm glad that you're listening. Actually, that is what jazzes me the most, is that I know that when I interview these guests and I put out episodes, that you actually listen and you show up and you watch the videos and you're subscribing and following and doing the things that excites me. I appreciate that because, it makes our effort worth it, first of all. But I'm also, this is two sides of the same coin. I'm always super excited to talk to my guests because they always have something that they can teach me in these interviews. And I'm hoping that that's the same for you. Just like with my next guest, David Sermersheim. He is a friend of mine through the National Speaker Association, and I love his business. Now, he does work full time in a current job for a corporation here locally. And he will talk a little bit about that in the interview. But his side job is so unique to me and so necessary as a piece of not just marketing, but a piece of like family history. So I don't want to spoil everything for you, but David is one of those guys. I have loved getting to know him through the NSA. I love his heart for what he's doing is just so genuine, and you can feel it. You can feel it through what he's talking about. You could probably feel it through your headphones, through the video on YouTube. I know I felt it across the table because, heads up, he made me cry a little bit. So you might want to grab a tissue or two just to have handy just in case, because the impact of the stories are so amazing. And I'm so glad to be able to bring my interview with David Sermersheim to you on this episode of Small Business Success Talk. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you, fellow NSA member.
All right. Thank you, Christy. I'm excited.
Same. Okay. So I've heard bits and pieces over the couple of years that I've known you, but I've never really gotten like your origin story. So give me some background here and get us up to speed on what you're doing now.
All right. Well, I guess a little bit of background. From Louisville.
Yep.
Been here pretty much all my life, and I've been for 30 years, for 3 decades, I was in corporate sales for Bell South, AT&T, and SBC.
Wait, Bell South, is that still a thing? Or
no, it's not. And so, well, it's interesting. So the actual progression was AT&T broke into 13 different companies. Bell South was one, SBC was one, and but I was with Bell South to start, and then I moved to SBC, and then SBC ultimately purchased AT&T and Bell South, and it is now AT&T. But I worked for those 3 entities. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was working with large and small business. Probably worked with thousands of different customers over those 3 decades to help them be successful. So I would have to learn about the business and learn what success meant to them, and then I'd need to come up with a solution that would help them reach and exceed their level of success. So I've been dealing with large and small business for 3 decades. But what I'm doing now, I work for the preeminent HDPE plastic pipe company in North America. How about that?
I
you might think, well, there's got to be only one.
Your virtual background
Yeah.
is this big pipe running through the middle. Yeah.
And so I've been doing that for 9 years, and I'm not in sales. I actually lead a team and have since I got there 9 years ago. I lead a team of fusion experts that travel throughout North America, U.S. and Canada, and I help them. And I kind of do the same thing that I did with the companies that I work with. I help those individuals be successful personally and professionally. And together we provide the finest HDPE fusion services in North America. So it's been great. It's been fun. It's been rewarding. But it's still kind of, I'm doing the same thing. I'm helping people be successful. And that's the way I look at it, and I love it.
And that's your day job, however.
Right.
Let's get into the really fun stuff here.
Yeah.
So remind me what you've called your business now.
So it's called Celebrate Audio.
Yes.
And I guess a couple things during what you call my day job, a few things that led to this. 8 years ago, I realized that I couldn't communicate with 30 to 40 individuals that were traveling all over North America. It was difficult to get them all together at one time. So 8 years ago, I started an internal podcast so I could reach the team. And, I would... it first started on what I thought was important for them to hear.
Right.
And it quickly turned into, with the feedback they gave me, it turned into the information that they wanted to hear. And so I then began to have some guests, and it became a 30 to 40 minute monthly, maybe every 2 months, communication from where I was, all the things that we were doing, but then I'd have guests. Well, one of the guests that I had was the wife of the founder of the company. And it was the most enjoyable 2 hours I've ever had. And I interviewed her, and really, she went back almost to the beginning. Our founder had passed, but their two sons run the company. So I wanted to understand what made a 50-something-year-old company still unbelievably successful. And so I asked her, we have core values that we go by, we have all these different things, but it's a list. I wanted to understand why. And so I interviewed her, and she helped me understand why. She helped me understand the origins of the company, what her husband had to go through, the different things that he did in the early days. And she also answered some questions why we do certain things that we do, why certain core values, why do we focus on trust, why do we focus on respect. And she answered those, but she answered them in stories. She answered them with specific stories that took us back 30, 40, 50 years ago.
That's amazing. So you've had the experience with a business owner, a founder of a business, who you're getting this heartfelt soul work that has played itself out over decades in the business.
Yeah.
And it was still true for her as to why you did what you did even today versus back then.
100%. So we were able to understand the origins and what they went through, but we ended up finding out the why and the what. And then what I do now in my role, when I have new hire programs, when I have new people come in from all over North America for their new hire, we play that interview still.
Oh, that's
today.
great.
So the day before, we talk about the core values and the things that we represent and what we're about. But the very next day, we help them understand the why behind it all. And she's passed since, but it is to hear her describe the why. It is powerful.
Isn't it? you say that, and I don't know why I'm not even thinking of it until just now. I had the same experience because part of my job at KFC in our division was to kind of be the librarian, if you will, for Colonel content and commercials. And there was a documentary that was an autobiography for Colonel Sanders. So,
Oh, how great.
to get it straight from him as to what those experiences were, why he does the thing, why he would go into the stores to test the gravy, like how important it was for the gravy to be so smooth. Like, you don't find lumpy gravy. If you find lumpy gravy, it got tossed out. Like, there was like this level for him that you had to meet in every store, and his heart about, the kids for the March of Dimes, and like you learned all of this other stuff about the Colonel, and
how
it
great.
just, right. And you realize you don't, like, sitting here, I remember, I was like, that's the thing that would inspire me the most, because it didn't matter what your age or your situation, or it's never too late to, first of all, try something new or fight for what you know. And we always had an award at the end of the year for the franchisee who exemplified this particular award, and it was called The Hard Way, and it was a poem that Colonel had wrote, and we put it on a plaque. And he
great.
did it the hard way.
Yeah.
And it was just, yes.
So what I love about it is you could explain it. This is what we do. This is what we do. But in his words, it's why we do it.
Yes.
And there's nothing more powerful than that. And it's through stories. This is why we do it. This is what we do. And there's just nothing. There's nothing more powerful. So when we tell the story, and I guess it was through that interview I realized just how powerful that interview process can be, so that people can better understand the background. And so that's part of why I started Celebrate Audio, because I know the impact that it can make to organizations, the story, the background, but I also do it with individuals. And when I interview individuals, I help them to tell their story, and it might be celebrating a situation, it might be a promotion, it might be engagements, it might just be a celebration or a review of their life. And that came about. I had been talking to my wife, Minda, about my thoughts on interviewing people so we could preserve their culture, their business, their why, their purpose. And we were at a wedding, and our good friend was getting married, and the girl that he was marrying, her dad didn't live long enough to be at the wedding. He had died a few months beforehand, but during the toast, they played a voicemail that he had left the family.
Why do you gotta do this to me?
No, because I know, but this, you think of I could have just told you, well, there was just something that happened, why I want to do this.
Yeah, no.
But this was critical because they were able to play not only his voice and him speaking, but he was talking in the voicemail about my friend, her future husband, and how much fun they had had the first time they went out. The dad and his son-in-law to be.
I'm dying over here.
So everyone at the reception was crying.
Of course.
And then
I don't even know these people.
Yeah. Great people. But my wife looked across the table at me and she said, "You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to help preserve these stories, because when the people are gone, or when the business, when the people are, the founder, the president, the key people, when they're gone, you don't have the ability to tell these stories. And so those are the two things that pretty much, I've told you a lot about the background on why I'm doing it, but those two things really are the reason that I started Celebrate Audio. And I hate to say it, but it's not like I'm in this race or anything, but one of my first interviews, one of my first customers, we would not be able to have that same conversation today. And I learned so much from him about business just in that hour and 10 minutes that we spoke, but we wouldn't be able to do that now. And so there is a bit of a race. I want to help people preserve their stories. And so it's kind of where I am.
The first time you presented the idea, I was like, that's genius, and I love it. And when you had told me, and I was like, yeah, I had a moment. I was part of a leadership program. I'm looking at the books over there now. Part of a leadership program. One of my homework pieces was to get different generations of people, ask them the same questions, and you're going to get different answers, right?
Right.
So you're looking at different perspectives. So I don't know what made me do it, but I chose my mamaw. She was 81 at the time. And I chose my mamaw. And I said, Mamaw, I'm going to put you on speakerphone so I can have this piece of paper and I'm not throwing you all over the place. She was fine. But what she did not know was that I had my microphone next to the speakerphone on the phone.
Great. How great.
I mean,
oh my gosh.
It's a conversation nobody else could ever have with her.
Yeah.
To hear about, some of her stories from childhood. Whew. And like when I asked her what her proudest accomplishment was, she said me.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
How great.
Yes, I'm so glad that you're, this is an awesome.
Yeah, no, this is. So, well, and it just underscores the importance because it is so important. And you and I in NSA Kentucky, the two of us in NSA Kentucky, we speak.
Yes.
And we tell stories. We try, and I came to your marketing overview, and you helped me to identify things I had never thought of. Your expertise in the marketing and social media, and it's just so great. But we speak and we tell stories, and I just look at the importance of telling stories rather than just talking about data and numbers and things such as that. And even though you're an expert in your area, you tell stories so that people can understand it better, so that they can remember it better.
Yeah, and the story, I don't know if you're the same way, but a story will resonate so much more than just like you said, the facts on the paper or the process in which we need to get through. Like, this isn't the thing that's going to make my day better. It's the experience, and that experience translates to the story.
Right.
And there's no better thing to be doing is to capture those stories for people.
But what I have found is that in many instances in the discussions that I'm having, and it's just an interview, it's just a discussion, and it's that next question. But what I'm finding is that a lot of people, in my mind, I always think a story isn't a story until it's been verbalized or written. Because otherwise it's just thoughts in your head, and you'd be amazed at how many people have these thoughts, these links, these stories, this background in their head, but they've never spoken it. They've never written it. And so then when you talk to people and you ask these questions and you dig a little deeper and they dig a little deeper, it's just so great to understand an even truer meaning than a number, or hey, here are our core values, or this is why I do what we do, or oh hey.
Yeah, it's not just a statement up on a wall or in a binder. It's not just that. It's it's getting the gears going, because this is why story brand is a whole process of telling your story through marketing, right? That's as the hero's journey in your marketing. If we don't learn to tell the stories, like, we want the testimonials because that's that person's story of their experience with us.
Right.
And the story is what actually helps solidify our business growth. because we always want the referral. Well, why did you have such a great experience? Tell me what that was. We don't realize we're telling stories
Right.
all the time that we're doing this, and that's the thing that impacts, and it has impacted us from the beginning of time, right? It's the thing that keeps driving us forward throughout history. Stories. And I also keep thinking, man, nobody needs to know my stories like that. That would just be, because it would just be this constant, what the hell, Christy? What the hell, Christy?
But you talk about that. Everyone, and what I have found, everyone has a story. And I was watching the news a number of months ago, and they were talking about the race to interview and have an oral discussion with people that had been in concentration camps during World War II, and they're in a race because because next month, the next year, and then after the next year, there probably won't be any left to talk to. So they want to hear those stories. But what I'm finding is that, and I'm not comparing the two, but I guess what I'm saying is everyone you talk to has a specific story, and there are obstacles that they've overcome. There are different things that they've done as a human being and how they deal with different things. And I'm not saying that every conversation is that deep or overcoming obstacles, but every single person has a story. Every single business has a story, and what I find is that I can learn as much from someone across the desk from me that literally might just be talking about how they raise their family as someone that has run a billion-dollar company. And it's everyone has a story, and I feel like I'm in a race to help them tell it.
To a new segment of Small Business Success Talk. Okay, so my team has talked me into doing these, pulling a question from Reddit and then reacting to that. And one of these, and I literally just picked the title, we've pulled this up, so it's going to be kind of random, but it was family business problems was the title of this. I'm like, oh, I'm familiar with those. I work with a lot of family-owned businesses, so as an only child, I have a completely different perspective on what family-owned business is and does. So, tough bid 4007 from a year ago, but we're still going to do this. Now, this is kind of long, so bear with me. His post. So, I have been working for a family business that my dad started back in 1995. I've been working here since 2015. I have also have two brothers that are working here as well. We have 20 employees and typically gross around $3 million a year. My issue I am having is that my two brothers have zero motivation or care when it comes to the business. Most of the time when I tell people this, they think I mean they work, just not very hard. What I mean is they do absolutely nothing. They are the last ones to show up, the first ones to leave every day. They stay on their phones all day long. My dad stays so busy and involved with the business that he doesn't want to deal with them. I've had multiple conversations with him to try and fix this problem, but he refuses to get involved because he is so busy. Now I do make more money than they do. They both make around $60,000 and I'm at 110. If something were to happen to my dad and the business was left to me and my brothers, there would be major issues. They would be wanting more money, and I don't think there is anything I could do to stop it. My workload would also increase, so the problem he doesn't want to deal with now will be a problem in the future. I have an opportunity to go work another job that has potential for me to make $200K plus, but it's hard for me to leave a family business because I am the last chance the business has to survive. Once my dad is done, if my brothers are all that is left, it will all go down the drain. I am also the only chance my dad has to retire. He is able to step back some because I've taken over several of his responsibilities. If I leave, he has more pressure back on him. I'm torn on what to do and how to handle this situation. I will also say that at the end of each year, based on how the year goes, my dad will give out bonuses. That's awesome. This year I got $30,000. I'm like, we'll come back to that. I was curious as to what my brothers got, and when I looked, they both got $25,000. Again, we'll come back to that. which is absolutely insane considering I work from 5A to 5P while we'll come back to that too. While one brother works from 8:30 to 3 and the other works from 8 to 5. They contribute nothing to the business and get rewarded just for being family. Sorry for the rant, but I'm looking for some advice. The job opportunity I have will only be available to me for a few months. Okay. There's a lot of input here. A lot of people have long answers. Basic. Yeah. Your margins must be huge for those salaries and 20 employees with only 3 million gross revenue. The numbers seem slightly off, but that's not the whole thing here. There's some great information from a family-owned business veteran. Your dad's business is still his business. That is absolutely understood. So let me start there. Let me go with what I would say to all of this. Working with small businesses, not as a person who works with a sibling or a significant other. I'm not that. So, but I do work with those people. It gets complicated and convoluted very quickly. But what comes to mind for me in this particular situation is the parable Jesus talks about in the Bible, the prodigal son. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically the situation he sets up. 2 brothers, family-owned business. The younger brother's like, give me all my fortune. I just want to go do my own thing. He's the slacker of the 2. He goes off. The father gives him half the inheritance. He goes off and squanders it, realizes his mistake, down and out. He comes back, begs for, preparing to beg for a job at least, because even his dad's slaves were better treated than he was. And he comes back and the father is running to him and they throw a feast to welcome him back. The older brother is pissed because why is he getting a feast? I'm the one working here all the time. I'm the one putting the effort in. I'm doing all of this, and you're not giving me anything. And the dad calmly, this is my version of it, calmly says to him, but I've been with you this entire time. Why didn't you just ask for a party? The older son, who's very dutiful and responsible, never really asked for that. Now, while he mentions that he's had this conversation with his dad to deal with the issue, the dad doesn't want to deal with the issue probably for a myriad of reasons. And those are his boys, and he probably sees that they need a little extra covering for that. But the dad has his own issues in dealing with issues. So that is a thing. But to me, the crux of this comes back to the older brother, the one who's asking about this. If he does not have the soul connection, the heart connection to the business that the dad does, to be able to take it over and create family legacy with it, the business is going to die anyway. It doesn't matter what the dynamic is within the family. If he's not ready to take it on as an owner of the business, not just somebody who's making money in the business, the numbers shouldn't matter. Because everything's taken care of. If the motivation for this particular person is to make more money, then go get that job. Leave the family business, let the chips fall where they may, and go get the job. You're focused on yourself anyway, not like you're at a point that you want that, like the opportunities hit you. Should you make more money or should you alleviate pressure for your dad? Well, that's not the right focus. The better question is, would you want to lead and run that business regardless if your dad was there or not? When you ask deeper questions of yourself, you can get better answers. If you're motivated by just making more money, if that is the primary motivation, then being in business, running a business is not for you. Bottom line. Regardless of what the brothers are doing or not doing, because I'm pretty sure if I came into the business and did just a basic personality core values to see and a facilitation to get people on the same page, that might be a method in which everything can kind of get cleared up and directions happen. But to make it a family issue within the business, that gets damaging very quickly and over time. So there's my 2 cents on this particular situation. The dad himself is probably just fucking worn out from dealing with you yahoos for however long, and he's probably tired of hearing about it. There are solutions, but the business itself has bigger problems than this one. Like, the problem of these boys not doing their job in a day is not the main focus of him in the business. So it's not necessarily that the dad doesn't want to deal with the boys. It's not the priority of the problems that he has to deal with in a day. If you're not ready to take on that because you love the business so much, not just your dad, then don't do that. That would be my recommendation. Just plain and simple advice. But as I would coach somebody through it, it's ask better questions of yourself to find your real answers. And the best question is, would I do it if dad wasn't here? That's the question. Would I want this business, this particular business? Do I love it just as much as my dad? That's it. So you have a lot of passion about what it is that you're doing. So I don't even have to ask you about what you enjoy most about it, because just the power of what it is that you're doing and the results of that are just fascinating and phenomenal. So what are some key things that you've been experiencing along this path of this particular business?
Well, I think from an organizational standpoint, we can learn so much from these stories and the background. We can learn so much about either the company that we're doing business with or the company that we're working for. And, also, just when we talk about the culture, just when we talk about the formative years of a business, I'll give you an example. I think you probably know who I'm talking about, but I interviewed one of the most successful songwriters in Nashville, and I asked him, how do you go from being an aspiring songwriter to a songwriter that has written 3 number 1 hits, and one of them being one of the most well-known country hits of all time? And he told me 3 things. He said, number 1, you got to learn from the best. Number 2, you have to be persistent. And number 3, you have to surround yourself with other great people. So the 3 things. Now, if that ended there, that'd be one thing, and you'd write it down and you think, boy, those are 3 great things. But we continued to talk, and I asked him, how did you learn from the best? And he said he had heard a song and thought that that's the most beautiful song he's ever heard, and whoever put that melody and lyric together, he wanted to learn from them. So an aspiring songwriter, he wanted to learn from the best, and he went to where he lived and he knocked on the door, and his wife turned him away, and turned him away the next week, and the next week, and the next week. For 6 months, he knocked on that door.
Wow.
And he was turned away each time. And after about 6 months, finally, she answered the door, and the voice in the background, the great songwriter, said, let him in. And he was able to learn from the best. And so that's, of course, where persistence comes in. So then the next question was, how did you continue to knock on that door and get it shut in your face 6 months? And he looked at me and he said, I had more doors shut by the time I was 8 years old. I had more doors shut in my face by the time I was 8, because my parents raised me as a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, who knew that's where the...
No, well, that's just it. That's the discussion. That's the story. That's the interview. That's why the story is so much more powerful than a bunch of words,
wow.
a bunch of numbers. So those are the things that I get from the interviews. Now, of course, the interviews are private. They're when I do the interview, we get together for about an hour, and we'll meet beforehand, and we'll talk a little bit about what the customer wants to convey, and I'll get a little bit of background, and we'll just have a discussion. And we'll just talk into microphones, back and forth, questions, and then once we're finished, I'll take that discussion and then we'll professionally edit it and then provide them with a personal copy of that interview, that oral interview, and to be preserved forever. And in many cases, some customers are the ones that wanted to do it. Other customers, it's family members. And then in some instances, the businesses, they've wanted to make sure that they had, on record exactly what they went through in starting a company. And of course, in the situation I was in that interview that I did in the podcast, that has continued on for 5 years now. And each employee in the organization that reports to me hears it. And it just makes it that much more powerful.
So when that happens and you're showing every new employee this origin story or sharing this origin story audio, what happens for those employees? What happens for the overall business?
Well, from an employee standpoint, there's more engagement. Instead of just saying, explaining a concept, if you will, or trying to explain a culture or why we do something, those employees now can connect the dots and say, oh my gosh, this goes back to the founder. This goes back to a certain day when this was possibly the difference between this company continuing or ceasing operations. And so many companies have those moments in their history.
Yes, we do.
And, some people might say it's luck. Some people might say it's because we're good. Others might say because we work hard. But that's not the story. In these discussions, you understand the whys and the whats and how it impacts those that are working for this company, a year later, 2 years later, or decades later.
It makes it feel almost Disney-esque. Walt, it all started with a mouse. And everybody knows, everybody in that system knows the story. They purposefully train new employees on all of the background, Walt, and how it all got started, and how the parks got started. Because you got the story of Mickey Mouse and how the Walt Disney Company began with a mouse. But then you have the story of how did the parks come about? Because he just didn't like the experience with his kids. It was all nasty and, it wasn't adult friendly. It was like he wanted a place for kids and parents to do it together in a clean, healthy environment. And that's where the parks start. He just sat there one day and I could do this better.
Right.
And everybody knows, to always just continue to do it better. Every cast member I've ever talked to knows, they've bought into the whole thing. And Walt's been dead for how long now? I'm thinking how massive is that company, and everybody still knows that it started with the mouse because they go back to this origin story.
So you talk about that, and you've talked about Colonel Sanders, and you talked about Walt Disney, and you talk about the hard way. Well, these are the lessons that people learn. And so, I'm talking about employees and the people that work for the company, but the customers, it helps to, number one, to differentiate the company, to differentiate the brand. When you tell your stories, when you tell people what it's about and the why and how it impacts them. And, and so when you talk about the Colonel, the people working there know. And when you would walk into a KFC years and years ago, you knew what you were going to get. You knew what to expect because Colonel and all the employees did it the hard way, and they made sure that you were in great shape. They made sure. And when you go to Disney World, you know the culture. We're customers and we know the culture.
Yes.
And so these are the things that I think are missing with small businesses and a number of large businesses. And I believe that this Celebrate audio will allow people to tell that story.
So what's been your biggest learning lesson so far?
You know, it's that everyone has a story. No one's origin story, no one's personal story is any more or less important than anyone else's. I've learned so much just sitting and listening to the obstacles that people have overcome, and they're everyday obstacles. Life can be great. Life can be challenging. We're all dealt a different hand of cards. It's kind of how we play them. And it's great to sit and listen to people explain how they played their hand. It's fantastic. And that's what I've enjoyed most out of it. Just learning about people and the whys and the whats, and that we can all learn from them.
So what kind of advice, other than tell your story, because we got that point, but what kind of advice have you been given in the process of building your business?
My very first customer, we were having the discussion, and he was explaining his role in business. I had no idea of what he did in his professional life, and he had retired, and he was telling me that he was known as the fixer. He would go to the manufacturing facilities that were having issues, and he would go in and he would fix it and turn it around. He was the person that turned things around. And he was telling me the story of turning one of the locations around, and I asked him, why were you successful? And he said, because I asked the question and I listened to the answer. And that, to me, puts it all into perspective. You've got a lot of people that can ask a question, but not so many people that can listen to the answer.
Isn't that tough?
Yeah.
That's active listening, because you're fully present, but you're not trying to solve the problem before they got their whole sentence out of their mouth either. You're fully engaged with somebody.
Right.
There's a whole different level of listening to be able to truly solve problems.
Yeah, and you say that, but I think it all starts, someone that's really good with it and good at that is someone that starts as being truly interested. So when I say that I've had thousands of conversations with companies, I've had thousands of conversations with individuals over the years, because I'm truly interested. But it's just scratching a little further and asking that next question, and to really understand the story.
Mm-hmm. What would you teach others if you were to give advice to somebody else that wants to start their business and their thing? What would you tell them?
It doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to roll. You can spend a lot of time practicing or making sure that the web page is perfect, but just get it to where you can roll and pull the trigger and go. And I think that, I even waited a bit to make sure that the web page looked great, that the ordering system worked perfectly. Now, that's all important.
Sure.
It's very important, but get it to a point and go. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Minimum viable product, the MPV level.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's just get it out and let's see what happens with this.
Yeah.
And then if it's not an experiment level, then let's let it marinate for a minute. It's not ready. Like, how to determine what can be put out quickly at the MVP level, and then what does need to take a little bit longer to like cook up. If you
Right. Well, and like you and I were talking, when you do your podcast, sometimes, when you're finished and you listen and you think, okay, well, maybe I should have asked that question, or maybe my gain was a little too high.
Yeah.
You assess each time, and then then you get better. If you don't pull the trigger and do the first one, there's no way to assess and say, okay, how do I get better? You haven't even done it one time. Do it and roll.
do it
and
roll.
learn from it. Yeah.
Do it and roll. Do it and roll. Okay, so with that, we're coming to the end of our conversation today, but I have a question that I ask everybody. What does success look like for you?
To me, success looks like the ability to impact people positively. And I think a lot of us on this speaker's journey
Yep.
are in that same boat. In certain areas we might have a level of expertise, but it's the ability to share that expertise to help someone be successful personally and professionally. And I guess that's what success is to me, to help others out. And I think this Celebrate audio is, I think it's going to help me to help others be successful, and ultimately that helps me be successful.
Well, I love the impact that you are already having through Celebrate Audio. We are going to put the information of that in the show notes and things like that on the website.
Great.
So
Thank
we'll make sure
you.
people can connect up with you.
And thank you for what you do, Christy. You're fantastic at what you do. You're an expert, and so giving of your expertise. And I know I appreciate it, and a number of the people that work with you, we all appreciate it.
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate you, David. This is such a
All
love
right.
fest. Thank you.
Great. Good
Well, it's
stuff.
been a pleasure. I'm so glad that you said yes to this, and I'll see you at the next NSA meeting.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Well, I told you he made me cry. So, but how impactful is it to be able to use story to affect generations of employees, not just generations in your family? Have you thought about applying that to your own business? Are you telling your employees the reason why we started this in the first place? Are you sharing that story of how you've built it, what you went through to get here? This is one of the reasons that I started this show in the first place. I need to know those stories because I know in my own challenges, when shit hits the fan, I need to know that other people have been there, done that. They've got the t-shirt from it, so to speak. That we all have what it takes to make it through whatever challenges come at our way. And I love being able to have these conversations and just see where it goes. There's best practices, there's learnings, and I want to know from you. What did you learn from this episode? So please comment out there. Send us a note through the website. If you're not following us, make sure you subscribe so you can get each of these new episodes. Please, let's continue this conversation offline just as much as back and forth when you listen to the episodes. So highly encourage you to subscribe and follow. Spread the news, share with your other business friends, because, entrepreneurs get entrepreneurs, if you get what I'm saying. So I highly encourage you, go make your own kind of success today, and I'll see you on the next episode. Actually, you will see me on the next episode of Small Business Success Talk. I tried to sound really fancy with that incredible, but here we are, just being myself. See you guys.